Hi, I'm Margie Holmes, psychologist, author, and educator. Today, we'll wrap up our series on introverts and extroverts, and this time, we'll discuss changing introverts into extroverts and vice versa. Now, if you remember back in episode 1, some of you said people can be introverted or extroverted depending on situations. Actually, it is not that people can change from being an introvert to an extrovert or vice versa, but they can seem to change depending on the situation. As you remember, I hope, from episode 3 just last week. For example, an introvert salesman may seem like an extrovert when he's trying to sell a car. You know, he can talk endlessly about what model is better than another, why the car he's selling is much better than the car the rival car place is selling, etc., etc. But that is because he's become a good salesman because he needs to be. But I bet you when he gets home, he'll be glad to get over all that talking, all that smiling, and just become what he is, which is a quiet chap reading a book, listening to classical music, etc. In the same way, an extrovert may seem like an introvert, for example, if he meets the parents of the woman he loves. Of course, naman, you cannot be an extrovert, giving your opinion, backslapping the father of your hopefully girlfriend-to-be or wife-to-be, etc. It makes perfect sense for an extrovert to be quiet and to listen more than speak, which does makes him sound like an introvert, but that is only for a particular situation. Now, because so many of you asked how they could be more extroverted, I asked you back, no? Do you think that introverts are at a disadvantage here in the Philippines? And here is what you said. Carmela Fernando, yes, introverts may be put at a disadvantage because in a culture that validates those who are loud, which is mainly the majority, introverts tend to be automatically discounted and unfairly labeled as loners or even antisocial. Mitch Reyes, extroverts have the tendency to be dominant. Kung mas knowledgeable ang introvert, usually nakakalamang siya ng diskarte ng extrovert. Georgie Tionco, I think introverts here are not necessarily disadvantaged. Our culture seems to be respectful of the quiet and reserved personality as long as it's coupled with being courteous. Georgie continues, the disadvantage can come from the inability of many introverts to handle the level of expressiveness of most Filipinos. That and the inquisitiveness. Filipinos are predominantly very relational. As an introvert, that sometimes makes me cringe a little bit. Alfie Melia says, there are several factors that affect a person's attitude towards other people. These factors that can affect how socially interactive we are. We may seem extroverted and thus outgoing, as opposed to seeming introverted and thus inner-focused. Also, there seems to be several factors that affect how seemingly introverted or extroverted you are. These factors include familiarity, number 2, insecurity, number 3, interest, and number 4, personal skills and abilities. Alfie adds, no person is permanently introverted or extroverted. Now, let me qualify that a little bit, okay? No person seems more permanently extroverted or introverted, because sometimes, as Alfie says, so many of you have also stated, seeming introverted or extroverted depends on the situation and depends what qualities are expected of you to be successful. Now, to many people, and that is why I think lots of us Filipinos want to be extroverted rather than introverted. The reason is because to many people, it seems like extroverts are having more fun. But the operative word here is seems. Because actually, I think the way we define having a good time are very, very superficial things like laughing uproariously, being the center of a crowd, etc., etc. Now, that may be the reason We had, as I mentioned earlier, and I hope I don't seem like a nag, that is why we had gazillion questions from you on how to become more extroverted, and only one question on how to become more introverted. Now, Eman asks, as an introvert who struggles to communicate with acquaintances in person, how does one overcome the tendency and preference for isolation? You see, that was just what I was talking about earlier. Okay, Eman, and I hope we answered your question even konti lang. At J. Molly adds, can a person evolve from being an introvert to an extrovert? I think I did. Christine Uy asks, why do we label them as introverts or extroverts? Does it help? It seems that science wants to put people in boxes. Ikaw, dito ka. Sa ganito, ako sa'yo. Ikaw, ganito ka. So ganito ang pagkakatungo ko sa iyo. People are weird creatures. We have many facets. Minsan gusto natin makihabilo. Minsan, leave me alone. Christine Uy continues, should we draw out introverts from their shells? In the same manner, should we encourage extroverts to shut their mouths for some time? Or should we just accept people as they are? Definitely, Christine, we should accept people as they are. It is no use trying to change people, if only for the pragmatic reason that doesn't work at all. And this is one time, perhaps, one isolated time, that the French are right when they say, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. In other words, the more things are different, the more they are the same. Well, that's it for today. I'm sure some of you may disagree with my saying that you cannot change from being an introvert to being an extrovert, even if that statement is backed up by research. Many of you may have felt that you yourself change, and I'd like to know more about this, and I will answer any question or disagreement you may have. So please jump in the conversation below. Send me your questions, comments, and suggestions for future episodes on Facebook, tweet using the hashtag AskMargie, or send an email to askmargie@rappler.com. See you next week.